this one?
I like helping people just generally in the world of finance. And I got a call from a guy who had seen Betting on Zero and had reached out to my partner, Burke, on email. And actually, a year later, Burke finally got back to him. And literally, I think it was maybe even longer. And Burke set up the phone call and said, "Hey, you should talk to this guy, Toby. He's kind of doing something around GameStop." And GameStop was exploding at the moment. It's like February of last year. So I took the call, and Toby was like, "Hey, I'm making this doc." I assume Toby was calling to look for financing, right? That's kind of most of the reasons you get a call for a doc at some level. And he was really curious about what I knew about short selling because he'd kind of started this story about he got into investing and got into Wall Street bets fully independently and thought this would make a crazy doc because these people are really interesting subjects. Like they're full kind of funny, irreverent retail guys who are getting involved in stocks. Like, I'm going to make this doc. And so he and Tessa, his partner, started making this doc in like December. And then GameStop happens in January, and he starts hearing about this naked short selling and calls me, starts asking questions. And, I spent a couple hours on the phone with Toby explaining, no, this is wrong. This doesn't happen. There is something over here you should look at. And, maybe there's something here. And I don't know, there could be something here. And maybe I can help introduce you to some people. And so that went on. He'd call every couple of weeks for a while. And then he was like, "Hey, would you be in the doc?" And I said, sure, I'll help out with that. And then it went from would you be in the doc to kind of, I had introduced him to all these people. And we together went down this rabbit hole that was not at all the movie he started making. And so it went from Wall Street Bets and GameStop, which is what you'll see in episode 1, to the underbelly and plumbing of Wall Street and short selling and stock loan desks and naked stock lending more than naked stock selling and excess leverage and, potentially the collapse of Wall Street.
As you were sort of helping Toby chart the course here, starting out, what level of background did he have going into it? He saw sort of some interesting stories. Was he just starting from zero basically, or had he had...
He was starting from zero.
Oh, wow.
Like in December of November of 2020, he starts investing personally and is going to Wall Street Bets to learn about investing. So, standing start, right? Like he's got nothing. And then he's getting in the Wall Street Bets community. He thinks this is really funny and cool. And hey, I'll make a movie about it. And then by the time he's done, about 2 months ago, I am having regular meetings with him and people who will remain unnamed in the prime brokerage community who build all kinds of technologies that help enable Wall Street, explaining to him exactly how DTCC works and how the various rules in the SEC work. And we're talking to plaintiffs' attorneys for short selling. He went from 0 to 100 to the point that I was learning a lot of stuff in a lot of these meetings as well very quickly. And he really dug in. He wasn't just making a movie. This guy was on a quest for truth.
So who are the players? Let's maybe start with episode 1. Who are the players in episode 1 that the documentary deals with?
It's really the Wall Street Bets community. And it is kind of, it's fascinating. It starts with, okay, here is this retail community that's really never been involved in stocks, who are now in stocks, not just for the reason typically people are in stocks, which is greed at the end of the day, but greed with a mission, greed with I'm going to get back at the man. And I'm pissed off at the man, and I'm not sure who the man is, but he screwed me in 2008, and I'm going to screw him back. And this is my shot. We're all going to band together, and we're going to get this guy. And that guy in their minds is Gabe Plotkin and Melvin. And so it really starts with retail investor base in Wall Street Bets, which is really, in many ways, like it's a mob scene, right? They're furious, and they've got one thing they're going to do, and that's hold on to these stocks until they go to the moon. And when they do that, it's going to put this hedge fund out of business and whoever else, they don't care. So it starts there. That's really episode 1 with a little sprinkling of Robin Hood. And Robin Hood kind of is that bridge between episode 1 and episode 2 because they're the broker and they've got all their accounts.
So episode 1, in many ways, you sort of set up the trade in many ways around GameStop and some of the players around it. And it sounds like the retail folks start discovering how the financial services industrial complex works, and that's what leads into episode 2.
They begin because who knows who's on Wall Street bets, right? There are some very sophisticated folks on there that could be using the rest of the mob. Who knows, right? The owners of Wall Street bets has changed over time, but there are people in there posting real intelligent stuff. Granted, they use some inappropriate language when they do it sometimes, but it's, as I said, funny, irreverent, but it's not stupid. And there's some conspiracy theories in there, but a lot of the conspiracy theories have some very real data inside of them. So some guys start posting, hey, Robinhood is out there, and there's this payment for order flow thing that's run by Citadel, and you guys should all be aware that you're being used by them, the guys that you're using as a brokerage, and the guy you think is Robinhood, robbing from the rich and stealing from the poor, might be kind of doing the opposite. And so that kind of leads them down this path of, okay, is there, and part of the whole thesis with GameStop is there are more shares short than there are shares outstanding. And that should be impossible. And if we all buy our shares and put them in a cash account, or however we get them out of the lendable supply, the stock's going to go to the moon. And you can all never sell because you got to have diamond hands. And if you do, we're going to ram this guy right out of existence. And that's their thesis, and that's their trade. That's the big trade. And that leads from Robinhood to now Citadel to short selling to stock lending to how is it that we're not able to squeeze these guys to what really happens in the plumbing of Wall Street in episode 2.
So then in episode 2, and as I recall, Robinhood started putting restrictions on these stocks, the Reddit stocks, GameStop, AMC, etc. How close were we to something pretty systemic in terms of what was happening with these particular trades that could have bubbled over into something? I sort of look toward like long-term capital management as the idea of a trade that starts rippling.
Super similar. Great analogy. And we were arguably closer. I mean, the reality is the options market is really run by two players, Citadel Securities and Susquehanna. Citadel has these hedge funds that everybody talks about. Oh, it's the hedge funds. But there's Citadel Securities, which is where Ken really deploys all his leverage and sells volatility. And they are, Citadel backs Robinhood with payment for order flow. So they buy all of Robinhood's trades, giving Robinhood cash to get a free look at the order flow, saying they'll give them the inside market of national best bid and offer. Whether the Robinhood clients are getting screwed or not is unknown. Payment for order flow is a system that it completely lacks in transparency. And so you can argue, oh, well, it's better than the national best bid and offer, but that's not the real market. There are 80 dark pools out there. We have no idea if they're giving them the inside market or not. They know, we just don't. So you've got Citadel Securities in there, and they're deploying a tremendous amount of leverage on top of that. And then you've got Susquehanna, but Citadel is really all of Robinhood's options exposure also. So, you've got a situation where the entire options market is highly concentrated, massively leveraged. And think about what the Robinhood guys did, right? They were into buying lottery tickets, which is very non-traditional in terms of the way people play markets. Most people who buy options are like, oh, let me buy something that's at the money and pretty far out. I want time. I'm trying to get some free leverage out of the options market, and maybe I think I have an edge in something. Oh, the Robinhood guys are like, this thing's going to the moon, so I want an option, but somewhere halfway between here and the moon. And if it costs me 10 cents and it expires in 3 days, I don't care because it's going to the moon tomorrow. Now, the system wasn't built for that. So all of a sudden, Citadel Securities, who's on the other side of all these retail investors' trades, is selling these lottery ticket options all day, every day for a handful of days. And typically when you do that, you hedge those as the stock approaches it, because stocks typically move in a relatively linear fashion. And historically, Citadel and Susquehanna would buy those lottery tickets in case there was a takeout event or something like that. So they're typically selling vol at the money and buying vol way out of the money as an insurance policy. All of a sudden, they're selling the insurance vol. And then think about what GameStop stock did. It goes 20, 50, 200, 500. That is a smoldering crater, not even smoldering, it's a flaming crater in the middle of their balance sheet. What happens next? And we can't draw the line of, those are kind of factual statements